very appropriate song there on Anzac Day, and it's appropriate that we catch up one of our sisters from across the ditch there in New Zealand. There's nothing more that brings Australia and New Zealand together than Anzac Day, and Ali Cook joins us now. That's a lovely moving song, Ali.
Thanks, mate. A sister from across the ditch.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's a real personal one, that one too, because I actually was in France in 2011 in a place called Sassenay and found out about the story of this World War II bomber that had crashed there, and there was Australian and a New Zealander on it. The Australian was from Newcastle and the New Zealander from Auckland. And they died in the crash, and it was quite an amazing story because J850 was the Lancaster bomber and turned the plane up on the wing to miss the village. And so the villagers really felt that they'd done that to avoid the village, and the plane crashed. The Germans, they found a couple of bodies and they handed them to the local priest. And of course, they said, they took the dog tags off and said put them on the ground, no funeral and all that. And the French people were really amazing. I found out about these sort of passive act of resistance that they did. So what they did was they sent message out through the night, and by the morning, in this little village of 300 people, there were 2,000 people at the church that had marched from 20 kilometres away. And they jailed the priest for the rest of the war, and they jailed the mayor for the rest of the war for organising the funeral. But this funeral took place without, the families over here would have never have known that their loved ones were gone on the plane. And so the song Sassenay is about that. And what happened was, when I got there, I was at a press conference, got told about it, went to the graves, to the Commonwealth graves of the airmen, and got told about the story. And there was this war memorial that they'd done in 1985. They have flagpoles of all the people that were on the plane because it was a mixed crew. And in 1985, they invited all the air forces of the various crews from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc., and the UK, and they all came except the New Zealanders didn't come because in 1986 the Rainbow Warrior had been bombed in Auckland Harbour by the French, so we'd snubbed them, and I was the first New Zealander to arrive back in that village after that.
Wow.
So they went, what can you do about it? And I went, well, I can get this recognised, I can do this. And I got on the email that night onto a few pollies that I knew, and got some strings pulled and pushed a few people and said, you've got to recognise this for these people. And then the New Zealand Air Force was there at the next 15th of August commemoration of the crash, and so sort of got it recognised. And then later on I found the New Zealand family of the airmen, and I met the niece, and she told me that her uncle handed her a jacket button as he was getting on the boat and boarding to head away, and said, this is my Air Force jacket button, you hold on to it, and when I get back from war you can sew it back on. And of course he never came back, and she still had the button today when she was telling me about it.
Wow,
and,
that's amazing.
And so that's where the song comes from, closed her hand on the jacket button, hold on till I return. That's where that comes from. And then in Sassenay, when the villagers came, the children planted flowers on the airmen's grave, and so the planting flowers in the village, that's where that came from. Then the French bit at the end of the song is a French nursery rhyme, and it says, savez-vous planter les fleurs à la mode, and so I modified it, which means, do you know how to plant flowers in the fashion, do you know how to plant flowers in the fashion of our country? So it's kind of like I used a bit of a French nursery rhyme in the song. Because I think the thing is that with World War II, the French resistance was so incredible, and the French people did all these things that we never hear about.
No.
And so they were very brave. They risked their lives to try and save our airmen, get them out and all that sort of thing. So it's another side of war that doesn't get told.
We've just played the first part of the song, and we're going to play a different song at the end of the interview. But for the ones that haven't heard this song before and want to know more and want to hear your story through song, how can they still get a hold of that?
Well, either on the album or on iTunes. If you search Sassenay Spoken Word, Ali Cook, it'll come up, and the story's completely there, and the song as well. So, and it's on my album for Shoe Radio Hotel.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you very much for sharing a part of that song tonight, and also but for sharing the story of that. But we're going to move on to currently you're sitting into number 7 on this week's Country Tracks Top 40 with a new song called Love is a Full-Time Job. Congratulations, and tell us a little bit about that one.
Love is a full-time job. See, I know how to say fool in Australian now.
Yeah, that's very clever. I love the wording.
All right, go. Love is a full-time job, and of course that's the joke with that song. It's love is a full-time job, and it's just a song about relationships. It's quite rocky, almost like a Californian pop country sound. It's quite a different track to finish up from this album as the final single. I think I did a week or two at number 1, so I was pretty pleased with that. You know, I'm flat out with lots of artists. Worked with Tracy McKee, and we've got lots of artists that I've like shoving. I think Dale was dying to push me off my pedestal, and he's one of my clients. So it's sort of quite funny. It's a complete honour to be on the chart, and I'm really thrilled this week because I've just found out that I'm coming back to Mildura. So I'll be on Mildura Country Music Festival. I'm probably playing some gigs around the southern part of Australia, I think, at the stage. So it'll be some announcements on some things I'm going to do around that as well. But
so we need to stay tuned to social media.
Yes, a big festival every year. And if you want to catch up with Ellie's doing, as Tracy said, on all of the social media, you can catch up with her. Ellie, it's been great to catch up with you tonight. The single is called Love is a Full-Time Job. It's sitting at number 7. It's spent a couple of weeks at number 1 on the charts already, but it's still very hot. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ellie Cook, and Love is a Full-Time Job.